it through the launch. You did it. Your ministry or organization is off the ground. You've had that initial day where everybody got to see all the blood, sweat, and tears that you've been pouring into the plans for this ministry over the last 6 months, year, however long it's been. And it's time to celebrate this accomplishment. Let's just think back to what we did for a little bit. You've had this burden from the Lord, and you took that burden and you sought his vision for it. You dreamed with him, you researched, you sought wise counsel from leaders, you created a plan, you invited others to join in this ministry with you. The Lord not only met you in the planning process, but he gave you heavenly strategy for this ministry and organization. And now you've had an official launch day. What an incredible moment. And I know that this class has been a whirlwind at the end of the 2 years, but we're gonna finish up this class talking about what it takes to persevere over the long run. Because believe it or not, getting everything off the ground is not the only thing that's required in the pioneering process. You know, I distinctly remember the first Zoom call in launch. You might actually remember it too. You might have known me or one of our other leaders. You might have known a few of the other students if they came from the same church. But honestly, more likely than not, you were a little scared. I was really scared too. I mean, I sat there as I got this launch call started for the first time, and I was terrified. I mean, relationships built over Zoom, how is this even gonna work? Was this program that I poured my heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears, hours of my time, my prayer life, if all these things I put into it, was it even gonna work? Were people gonna quit after the first year? Was I gonna be revealed as some kind of fraud of a leader? I mean, all of these thoughts as I just press that button to start the first call are tumbling through my mind, and I'm questioning all of my life choices up until that moment. And honestly, even throughout the first month, I still had questions of whether or not this thing was actually gonna work. And then you guys showed up at the very first retreat. And maybe as you're watching this video, it wasn't my first retreat, but it was your first retreat. And suddenly all of the pieces just came together. There was just this special grace from the Lord that was unexplainable except by his power and by his might. And suddenly I knew that I could do it. I knew that you guys could do it as students. I knew our leadership team could do it. But more importantly, there was this confidence in who God was that welled up inside of me. I went from crossing all of my fingers and all of my toes, just hoping and wishing and praying that it was going to work, to actually believing that it was going to. Not by might, but by my spirit, says the Lord. This is the one verse that has carried me through everything I've ever started, pioneered, new ministries, new initiatives, new programs, and this verse is going to be the one that carries you through too. Not by might, but by my spirit, says the Lord. That's Zechariah 4, verse 1. We can do absolutely nothing apart from him. Our own strength or trying to muscle the outcome is actually not real strength. We want to believe that when we are doing things in our own flesh, that it's our human ability, it's our strength and our will, but it's actually not real strength, bravery, or courage. And hear me, leaders actually need strength, bravery, and courage, but those things come from the Lord, not from our own might. Isaiah 40, verse 31 says, "But they who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Psalm 27:3 says, "Though an army encamp around me, my heart shall not fear. The war arise against me, yet I will be confident." Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Strength. Your strength comes from actually waiting on the Lord. Your bravery comes from a confidence in who God has made you to be and who He is. Your courage, that comes from the knowledge that the Lord is with you wherever you go. Part of your journey as pioneers is not getting all of these things together or being fully confident or strong or courageous or brave before you actually launch your ministry. Part of your journey as pioneers is continually coming back to these same questions, these same principles, these same verses, and strengthening the foundation that you've built your ministry on and the principles that you live by. Here's some of the questions that you have to continually come back to. Am I waiting on the Lord? Or have I begun to try to do something in my own strength? Do I know who I am and whose I am? Where is your identity placed? Do I know that He's with me? Or do I believe in this moment that He's actually left me? Am I trying to do this in my own strength or by His Spirit? You will face challenges in this pioneering process that you literally didn't even know were possible. I've faced some myself in launching Launch. And yet our security, our answer, and our confidence every single time is Jesus. We can be strong, we can be brave, and we can be courageous, not because of who we are, but because of who He is. This kind of reliance and dependence on the Lord is far from weak. It takes more strength and more maturity to entrust this ministry, this organization that you've poured your whole life, your whole heart, your whole soul into. And entrusting the Lord is actually very, very difficult, but it's the only way that this God-sized vision is going to become a reality. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 9 says this, "But He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." Can you imagine a leader as significant and well-known as Paul boasting publicly in his weaknesses? I mean, that is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. But when we attempt to overcompensate for our weaknesses, to cover them, to pretend that they're not there, we fall immediately into working in our own power, our own strength, our own courage, and our own bravery, and not the Lord's. And I don't know about you, but I certainly do not have a deep well of strength, courage, or bravery apart from Jesus. Perseverance in pioneering requires reliance. Because a lot of times you won't actually have a ton of models to look at. You won't have a bunch of teachers that can tell you exactly the steps you need to take. You won't have a ton of books that you can reference. And even if there are people that you can look to and learn from, it's not a copy-paste situation. You can't just take exactly what they've done and do the same thing and have it reproduce the same results, because God has given you a specific vision for your region, your giftings, your skill sets, and who He's created you to be. It's a God idea, so it requires God's strength, God wisdom, and God ideas. We know this so well, but so often, without even realizing it, we actually stumble into self-reliance instead of having the patience to rely on God fully. We rely on self because we can trust ourselves, but the reality is that God is so much more trustworthy than we are. You've worked so hard and you've pressed in so much to the Lord in this process. Don't stop now. Don't be like Moses, who walked into the tent and had an encounter with God, such a powerful encounter that his face literally shone with the glory of God. And then he walked out of the tent and struck the rock in his own wisdom of what worked, instead of being obedient to the Lord and what he was saying to do. Reliance on God is the foundation that you need to persevere in pioneering. Yes, your character is important. Yes, your strengths are important. Your choice is important. Your expertise, your gifts, all those things are important. But none of those are a firm foundation like the Lord is.